Hello. I'm just getting everything set up. All right. Cool. Hello, everyone. We are going to finish up our book CRUD app today. I've gotten several comments that people want me to put the code on the left side instead of the right because my face is on the right, and I think that is a smart idea. I also see that my camera is the wrong one. So let me switch that. Maybe. Did that switch? I don't think so. One day I'll get really good at this. Well, it doesn't really matter. Okay. Can someone let me know in the chat if you can hear me fine? And then we'll get started. All right. So we have our code here, and then we are also going to get our application up and running. So I already have a terminal for my API and a terminal for my front end open. So I'm going to just get those started. So for the front end, I'm CD'd into the front end folder, and that is a React app. So I'm going to just do npm start dev, and that will start up my npm run dev. Get that wrong every time. That will start that up. And so now we can go ahead and click on this to get that open. And I'll pull it over here. All right, so now we should be good in terms of my face is blocking the application and not the code. All right, so we can see that we have our library, and then we see that we have this loading. And the reason for that is because our API is not running. So we're going to go ahead and start that. This is a Nest.js server. So we're going to do npm run start and then :dev. So that way we get a live hot reloading server. All right. Perfect. So now if we refresh this page, we can see that we have one book, Eloquent JavaScript, in our library. If we go to our database, which I'm just trying to get open here on another screen. So let me pull it up. I'm using pgadmin to look at my database. I have several databases locally, but we're going to look at book CRUD. And so if you go into schemas, tables, we can look at our book table here. So we're going to view and edit data and then all rows. And you can see last time that we were functionality on our front end done. Look, I'm not going to have any more. And then there's also no way for me to books. So the posting a book is going to be our work for today. So let's get started. We already have this route on our back end. So you can see that we have our post book route. And right now, postman to post the book. That's how we got this Eloquent JavaScript in there. You could also just like manually add it to your database. But we now want to be able to add it on our front end because that's kind of the whole point of the front end. So I'm going to minimize the API here. I'm going to open up my front end folder. I'm going to go into the source because I'm going to find where at in kind of the tree I'm going to add this. So our whole application kind of starts on main.tsx, but that's just saying like render the app. So we should go look at the app then. In app, we're going to use a use effect to load, to call our API to load a book, all of our books. And that is how we're doing this. And then we're setting our books. Okay. So if you look at the actual component that we have here, we have a div wrapping around everything. We have our header, which is just my library. And then we are iterating over the array that comes back from our API to put our books on display. So I would think that what we would want to do is put a box or like a form up top above this here where we would want to create the form for adding a book. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to create a component. I'm going to call this book form. And you get the red squiggly line because it's saying this doesn't exist. And that's because we haven't made it yet. You'll see if we save, it's going to be mad at us. You can open up the console. You can see the error, but it says book form is not defined. And that's because there's no component book form. So let's make it. We're going to make a new file, and we will call this book form.tsx. And then we will move this into our components folder. All right. So now we have our book form. So then we're going to say const book form is equal to, and set up our component here. And then we're going to say return, open up the parentheses, and we'll do a div, and then maybe we'll do, I don't know, just do another div for now and say this is our book form, just so we can get it on the page. All right. Then we need to export our book form component so we can import it in other files. So we'll go here and hover over this and then add import and save. So now you can see that we no longer have that error, and we also have the book form is right here. Obviously, it's not a book form, but there you have it. All right. I'm also going to steal a little bit from the other components because I'm going to check out how we do things in our other components. So here in our book, you can see that we already have kind of the structure a little bit for some of the components that we're going to use for the form. So I'm going to just copy that, and so that way we can stay consistent throughout the whole thing. All right. So it looks like we have a div wrapped around the whole thing, and then we have each of our fields, and whether or not we click edit, we have, it turns into an input or it shows the result. I don't think we're going to make the form conditional. I think if the form is open, then we should be able to just see the input. So I'm just going to copy the input for now and then go over here. So we are going to want an input for title. And you can see it's getting mad here because it's saying, wait, excuse me, we don't have an edit title and we don't have a value title. So then we are also going to go over here and we are going to steal this state, all right, from our other component. All right, so now we have a state. We have to import use state from React. But now we have somewhere that we can save the title that the user types in, all right? And we won't have any initial default state. We'll just have this be an empty string, okay? Because there's no data that we have for this form. It's empty, okay? And then we also are going to need a onChange function for edit title. I'm going to change this to add title, all right, because we don't have a title yet. This is a new form. So then let's go ahead and let's create this function so it's done yelling at us, and we will allow it to do this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to console.log the event that we pass in, target value, because that's going to tell us what we're typing into the input that you're about to see. All right, so now we have this input here. All right, and if I open up my console, all right, and I start typing, you can see that I'm typing what is being typed in here. But the issue, see how it's kind of just, I'm typing lots of letters at a time, but you don't see it come up in this input box, and you're only seeing one letter at a time. And the reason for that is because we're saying that the input, the value of this is going to be equal to title. So anytime we change title, or, oh wait, title is an empty string, right? So we didn't change title. And so that's why it's like that. So what we need to do then is we can console log what we're typing in, but we also want to set our title state to the same thing. So anything that is typed into that input box, we also want to set the title equal to. Let's clear our console so we can take a look at this again. And so we can say title, and now you can see that the title is coming up in here, and it's every time I type a letter, that input value is changing. Okay. So perfect. We don't really need a console log that. I don't know. All right, let's go look again and see on here if we did anything else in those things. But nope, we just did that. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the rest of these functions because we're going to need them too. And it's going to yell at us, but that is okay. We don't have those states defined yet. I'm going to highlight edit, and I'm going to click Command D. And when I click Command D, that's going to allow me to highlight all of the other places where it says edit on there, because I don't want it to say edit author, edit genre, or edit price. I want it to say add. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. But Command D is how you highlight multiple things of the same way. And then that way I can change all of them. Okay. And you can see it's mad about author, genre, and price because we don't have those states. So there's two ways I could do this. Hey Jay, I have Copilot, so I can just kind of do this. It knows what it's looking for. So that's easy. I could type them all out myself from my brain, or I could go and steal them from here. Okay. This is just going to be mad because we're declaring it and not using it. But when you're using TypeScript, it's actually super helpful to kind of hover over the red squiggly lines, and it gives you really good error messages. All right. So now those are mad because we're not using any of them. So let's go ahead and use them. So I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to paste it to, oh, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to let Copilot do it for me. All right. And so now we have all of these input boxes, right? This is not great though, because it's very ugly and this is not what we want. So typically once I get kind of some of it working and like I have an idea of what I'm doing, I then go back and kind of make it a little bit prettier. Like this is too ugly in my opinion to go off of. So we're going to make it prettier. I kind of like how we have this set up here a little bit. So I'm going to go steal from what I already have, because why reinvent the wheel? All right. So let's see. So it's in this class name book details. All right. So we are using vanilla CSS on this bad boy. So let's go ahead and look at our CSS file, not our index.css, look at our app CSS. And we are looking at book details to see what we did with this. All right. Book details is just display flex with 100%. So what we can do over here then is we can add a div, and we can put our input in it. All right. And then we can add our class name here, and we can say book dash details. All right. And we it's displaying flex, so we want something, we want it to have something else too. So I think this should be right. Let me just check. So book details is, yep, and detail category. Perfect. So if I click save, now you can see that I have my title and then my input box for my title over here. So that's already looking pretty good. So we're just going to kind of go ahead and do the rest. Let's do this. And one of the reasons why it's good to like kind of not do all of the logic before you start kind of formatting it and making it look pretty is because I could have saved myself a lot. And then going and, but hey, what's a little, all right, that looks pretty good. All right, well, Copilot knows what I'm doing, so I appreciate you, Copilot. And price. All right, so now I can get rid of these inputs. And then, yep, I need to add a closing div here. But yeah, I mostly have this. This is looking good. Let's go look at the spacing that we have around our library book card here so we can determine how we want to do that. So that is book card. Let's go look at our CSS again. So border around it, there's a 5-pixel border radius. We have a padding, which is going to be 10 pixels on the inside here. Display flex with flex direction column. Okay. And then gap 5 pixels. So that's going to be between these two. Between all of these, we have 5 pixels. Okay. So I think then what we want is between each of these divs here, we want a gap of 5 pixels. We will want flex direction column, and display flex is fine. I think we might be able to just use book card for this. Let's give it a try and see how it looks. All right. Book card. Okay. Honestly, looks pretty good. What are we missing here? We are missing a button to submit, and we probably need to change this up here. So instead of this is our book form, let's change this to something like add a book to your library. All right, that looks better. And then it looks like this. Our book card has a bold title, so we might as well. Let's go and look. Our title has the class name of title. That makes sense. Let's verify that title works. That looks pretty good to me. So let's go ahead and add it. Also, feel free in the chat if you have any questions. If I'm going too fast or too slow, let me know. Class name, title. All right, cool. That looks good. The only thing is I don't really know if I want it centered. I kind of feel like I want it to the left, but I think we can worry about that later because I also don't like Times New Roman. So I'm gonna let that one go. All right. And then for book card, I think what I'm going to add now is I'm going to get this working because I want a space between the book form and the book card, but I don't know if I want to add that between here. Because once we get more cards, the spacing might look messed up. So I'm going to now work on the rest of this. Okay. So what I want to do here is I have it where it's saving as I'm typing in, it's saving into these states the information that the user is typing. Okay. So I feel pretty good about that. The issue that I don't feel good about here is that I'm not doing anything once I've saved it. So first, let's go ahead and let's add a, and let's say add book as the button. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. I think this spacing over here I don't love, so that's probably going to be something that I will deal with in a bit, but it's not enough for me to stop functionality. All right, so on click of this button, we want to submit our book. All right. And this is mad at me because that doesn't exist, right? But this is actually going to be pretty similar to our edit book function here. So I'm just going to copy it. All right. And we'll go back over here and then let's add this. All right. So we don't want to edit the book. We want to submit the book. So we'll leave that like that. I'm going to comment this out because we don't have a set submit state yet, but I don't want to forget that I did have that. So I'm just going to leave it here. And then at some point, I'm probably going to want to set a set submit state. All right. Okay. So this is saying like if we were editing it, this is our validation, right? We want to say if it's empty, so we can make a call to our back end and post request. And we, because we are doing that. So then I can also change this to just regular quotations because I'm no longer putting a variable in it. And then you have title, author, genre, price. If title, oh, so this is in our form, checking to make sure in our edit form that it was a different thing than before. So we can say if title is not equal to an empty string. And so let's just change these to empty strings, which actually is a reminder that we probably should be changing this on the, what's it called too? All right. So if title is blank or author is blank or genre is blank or price is blank, then we don't want to be able to submit this because we wouldn't have anything there. So we're going to say if any of those are blank. Oh, if any of these are not blank, so we need to change these to ands. This is kind of the problem with copying code that you wrote like a month ago. It's kind of hard to remember what you were doing. So sometimes it is good to rewrite it. Okay, so now this is saying that if title has something and author has something written in and genre has something written on it and price has something written on it, if all of those are filled out, then we want to send the request. Otherwise, we want to do some sort of form validation and say like missing info is fine, because this is just a console log, so it doesn't really matter what you say because this is just for us. At some point, we'll need to add like a toast notification or something for the user. Okay. So I'm actually, I don't know if I want this and I'm not worried about it, so I'm gonna just delete this. Okay. So if those are all filled out, then we are going to send a thing. Otherwise, we're going to say it's not right. That's pretty good. All right. So then set books, it's mad at us because we don't have set books. So that is actually something that we defined earlier in the application. So we need to go higher in the tree structure here to get set books. And we need to pass that to the right component. Okay. So for book form, we want to be able to say set books, and we want to set books. So we want a parameter or a prop for set books, and we're going to pass the set books state setter into it. It's mad because book form doesn't accept a prop right now, but we can make it do that. So let's go ahead and say set books. We use the curly braces here because we're destructuring our props. The reason it's mad is because it's TypeScript. All right. So whenever you pass in props, the convention that I like to use is I have a type props for each component. And you can see that the prop that we're passing in is set books. So what we can do is it's looking for like, what is the type of set books? The easiest way to find React types is to go where it's defined, hover over it, and then you can get the exact type that set books is. So set books is a React set state action, and it's like the thing that it's setting is books, and that is going to be an array of books. Okay. But I wouldn't have come up with that without going and cheating like that. So that is a way to do it. It can't find the name book. Book is a type that we defined in app. So you have to import it. And then all we have to do now here is we have to say that the props that we pass in are going to be of type props. And here's where we defined type props. All right. And now nothing is bad. All right. So now also down here, you can see that we set our books to response.data. I have the terminal open for my API here. So that's good. So I can see if we get any error messages coming in from the API. I can also go here, and because this is what we're going to work on, I'm going to add a console log in here. And I'm going to console log the book that gets passed in, just like I did here when we were working on the put route, because I want to make sure that when I debug, I want to do as minimal like tests of this as possible. So I've just done this enough that I know that I want to see if my data is making it from my front end to my back end. Okay. On that note, though, I'm also going to want to console log the response that comes back. And the data for the response is always in response.data. So I'm just going to put it like that. All right. So we could think of an actual book, but I'm feeling lazy. So I'm going to say test book 1. I'm going to say test author 1. I'm going to say test genre 1. And then I'm going to say, I think price is actually allowed to be a string. It's actually a string. So I'm going to just say price 1 and then see what happens. All right. And you can see that our book came through here and that is all correct. And you can see that the test book popped up here. So that means that our set books is correct. So because that worked out correctly, I can now go and remove the console logs from the areas that I don't need anymore. So I don't need this because I already know that, well, I didn't even look at it, but I already know that it's coming back as I intended. And then I can go into the app controller and I can get out of this because we know that the back end is working properly. All right. Let's say that this price is bothering you. So I can just say price is going to be $1. All right. And then I can save because we already have that functionality. The next thing that's immediately bothering me is there's no gap between the form and our books. So I am going to fix that. So let's go to app where we added the book form. Now there's a few different ways that we could do this. We could wrap this in a div and then add a class to there. We could change the class that we have for book card here into a different one. Or we could just add another class. I'm going to go with adding another class because that's going to be the easiest thing. So I'm going to now show you another trick. This isn't great based on how we're doing it, but this is another way that you can kind of use CSS. So a lot of the styling libraries, the way that they work is that you just add class names to what you want. And so all of the classes have the CSS written in them. So I'm going to show you kind of how they do that. So let's say I want to add a margin bottom, right? So I can call this instead, I can call this margin bottom, right? And so then I can define this class in my CSS. All right. And I can say margin bottom. And why did I even copied and pasted it? I'm being silly today. Is that how you spell bottom? What is going on? There we go. Okay, sure. All right. And so then here you can see that then we have margin bottom 10 pixels. Okay. Why did I do that? Because now anytime I want a margin bottom of 10 pixels, I can just add a class here to this. And I can say margin bottom, right? And now that's you just saw it pop up here. It added the margin bottom. Now you can even make it better. So I don't know which one it is, but several of them, margin bottom is actually just called MB, right? So we could literally just make it that MB, all right? And then, yeah, you could do MB-10, right? And so then you could have different ones, right? Where okay, now I want a margin bottom of 5, so let's make a class for that. And I think you can even use functions and variables in CSS too. I'm not a front-end developer though, so you'd have to ask somebody else. But that is looking a little bit better. I actually am going to name this margin bottom 20 because I want a bigger gap between it. So let's try 20 pixels. And let's rename the class. That's why that's not working. Okay, I feel better about that. All right, cool. What is next? So the next thing that you notice is that these don't clear when they're done. So that was kind of what I was talking about having that state for submit. There's a few different ways we can do this. So the easiest way is going to just be after we have a successful response, right? So we send our request and then we set books as the response. So we've now set books. What we can do then, oh my gosh, Copilot, you are so smart. We can then just set each of these pieces of state back to an empty string like so. All right. And let me just refresh this page to get it back to its default state. And we'll just say test book 2, test author 2, test genre $2, and then we'll have this one be $2. Now when I click add book, it's going to add the book, and then it's going to clear the state up here. Okay, so that's really good. And now we officially have the full CRUD functionality of our application. All right, so this is a great app if you want to kind of get into web development, get into full stack. I would say doing like simple CRUD apps like this are a good way to showcase your skills. Now, if you want to be a front-end developer, should you like finish it and leave it like this? No, you should not. But if you are just trying to like learn and get to it, that works. But from here, what should we do next? So if you are watching and you have thoughts in the chat, where should we take our live coding next? Should we add features to our library? Should we make it pretty? Should we change our backend to Go? Should we add tests? What are we thinking? Anyone with thoughts? Go ahead and comment. All right, I will watch for the comments, but I'm also going to, I hate Times New Roman, so that's what I'm going to work on specifically next in this video. But when I say what should we work on next, I mostly mean what should we work on next in the grand scheme of this, these sessions of every other week coding. All right, so let's go ahead and now we can take out our console logs because we don't need them anymore. A good way to, well, I actually going to leave this one because we don't have an error message. And we also don't have error handling. But okay, so if you're using a Mac, a good way to search for your console logs is to like click outside of any individual file and then do Command-Shift-F, and that will search through all of your code. Okay, so now I can look up console.log, and then I can go ahead and see all of the places where I'm console logging. So we can see a catch block. So that's something that we need to add still. We see we have a send request here. We don't need that. Okay, so we have our console log, no changes. That's fine. And then missing information. That's fine. Okay, so let's actually go through and work on this then. But I was going to try to get rid of the Times New Roman, but it's probably better to do error handling. Okay, so here you can see that we are making a request to our backend to get all of our books. Okay, and then if that's successful, we'll do this block. That's what the dot then means. This is a promise. Okay, we are going to get the data, and then we're going to set the books equal to that data. If we're not successful, we are going to catch the error. That's what this catch block is for. So what I want to do is I want to catch my error for sure, because we don't want to have a user accidentally do something where it doesn't work out. Maybe our backend is down and we don't want their just whole UI to break. We want to catch their error and say like, listen, errors happen. If there's an error, what should we do about it? Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to our book form here. And let's add a catch statement for us. So now we have a catch here, and we're just going to console log that error if there's one. All right, let me show you what it looks like with a catch error and without a catch error. Okay, I'm not going to do CSS for now, so I'm going to go ahead and get out of some of these, and let's go over here. All right, so typically when I post my book, I'm going to actually want to add the book to my database and so on. But here I want to throw an error. Can I just throw an error? Yep. I'm going to throw an error instead just to show you what the catch block does on the front. So I'm going to throw in a new error saying fake error. All right. And you can see that, do you see how this grayed out a little bit? This happens when code is not used. So at this point, the code's we're never going to get to the point of this code. And that is kind of a way to help debug too. If it's grayed out like this, your code, then you know like, oh, wait, if I wanted this to happen, it's never possible for it to happen. But we don't, because we're going to throw a fake error anyway. Okay. Let's then comment out this catch. Okay. And so anytime I submit, is this my post book? Yes. Okay. So anytime I submit a book here, the controller should throw a fake error. Let's see if this happens. So I'm just going to type in random stuff because it doesn't matter. And then I'm going to add a book. All right. So you can see that here, this aired, but the user is like not getting any information here. It's just saying like nothing, right? And then this isn't doing anything because we need, if you look at our book form, we need a success in order to set the title, author, book, genre, and price back to nothing. All right, so if we go and inspect though, right, and your user is not going to know to inspect, right, you're to see that we got a failed to load reset, resources error 500 and an Axios error, right? But we don't have any real information about it. If you look in the data, you can see the message here, right? But it's just like not super helpful of an error. So instead, what we can do is we can catch our error. All right. It's mad at me because you can have a semicolon in both spots. All right. And so if I try to add this book, right, it still says error, fake error. The user still doesn't see anything because all we're doing is a console log, right? We're only console logging the error. But now if I go look in my console, I can see my console log of my error. Does this help me out a lot? Not yet, but what does it do is it allows me to do other things when I get my error. So let's do that, okay? And I'm going to add a state here, and I'm going to say const error set error, and then we'll do use state blank, okay? So if we get an error, yeah, I want to console log the error, and then I'm going to add a little string before it just for funsies, okay? So is this something like this is an error? All right, I don't need to yell it. Calm down, Kathleen. Okay, so I'm going to console log this as an error, but what I'm also going to do is I'm going to set the error equal to, I want to equal it to the message. Is error.message the correct thing? Let me look. All right, look at the console. So error.message failed to with status code 500. I kind of wanted it to be fake error, but this is, I'm not doing a lot on the back end to do this. So we're just going to not worry about it. So we will go ahead and just save that for console log. We can actually show something on the to be good because logging, I mean, a console log, no, because we don't want the user to see our errors, but you could actually send a log to like whatever your monitoring logging platform is with the error. More likely you would send this error, but you can show something different. So say the error is like they didn't fill out all of their information or they tried to hack you or thing, right? So you can set the error to be something, and then you can add, it's going to be mad at me. Let's add another div because you have to have a single div wrapping around everything. But let's add here, we're going to add a div for our error message. So we're going to say if there's an error, right, we want to show, let's show a div that says, and we're not going to put this in a div. So I didn't plan for this. All right, show a div that says there was an error, okay? Otherwise, show nothing. So right now, okay, nothing. Because why? Because our error state is empty. But if I just submit this form here and then add the book, you can see that the back end threw an error, so then an error message pops up for your users. Now, is this how you would style it? No, you'd probably do a toast, or there's probably something else, or like a spot on your thing where you'd have an error message. But we can use this in other places too, right? So here we are going to say console log missing info. That's just for the developer. So what if we, instead of console logging the missing info, we set the error equal to missing info. And then what we could do here is we can say there was an error, and then we could, how do you do that? Pass in the error? Yeah. So now we have the error. Okay, so let's refresh the page to get back to 0. Okay, but if we try to do missing info, now I can also show this error on my screen for my users. So did this ever make it to the back end? No, because we want to do validation up front, but this is going to be where the validation would be. Okay, so this block is going to be catch and error from the API. And then this is going to be catch any user input issues before sending to the API. All right, but either way, it's going to set some sort of error, and then it's going to show some sort of error on here. Okay, so you always want to have error handling. You always want to make sure you're catching your errors and doing something with them. All right, you probably want to make it a little bit better in terms of visuals, but that can help you out here. What we can do now too here is we can add to this class, we can add our margin bottom -20, and that's automatically going to give us the margin bottom of 20. All right. Let's also add, maybe we want to be super stylish and we want to add a class for error. All right. So let's go to our app.css and then let's add a class for error. And yeah, you guessed it, we're going to have error in red. Okay. So now anytime that there is an error, I'm trying to put in my book, there is an error. Now, I don't want it to just say missing info. I want it to say what info is missing. So let's work on that next. Also, this is exactly how I code, and this is why I'm not a product person, is I literally just code what I feel like it. So keep that in mind, that when you're at work, you're going to be following things and not just doing whatever you want to do. Okay. So we want to set the missing error, okay? But what I want to happen is when I go to start typing into my form again, I don't want this error to be showing anymore, because I am, as the user, I'm like, oh, okay, cool, we're adding something. So what I can do is I can set error back to an empty string. All right, so anytime I start adding a title, it's going to set my error back. Same with the rest of them. All right. So, okay, let's go ahead and do that. So if I try to submit my form, you can see on my back end, nothing's sending. I'm actually going to go and remove this throw fake error because it does not matter anymore. All right. But what's going to be helpful is you can see that nothing's going to come in through here. Okay. Nothing's getting sent here. And I can further show that by adding a console log. Sure. This is going to console log the book that gets sent. I add a book, nothing gets sent. Okay. So if I start typing in here now, the error message disappears because it's like, oh, you are adding the error, or you're fixing this. I don't need to show you an error until you try to use this again. Okay. So now this should work. So I'm going to get rid of one of them so it doesn't work again, and then add the book. And so now we get this, there was an error, missing info. Okay, so what I'm going to try to do in the next 15 minutes before I call it a day on live coding is I want to make this error message more, like give it more specifics for the user. So right now it just says missing info. I want to be super clear as to like what info is missing. Okay. So I am going to, so there's a few ways we could do this, right? So I'm trying to figure out how to make this like not super conditionally, and then like, you know what I mean? But sometimes it's better to just make it work and then make it better. Okay. So we're going to say, if title is missing, then we are going to set error missing title. No. We are going to start with an empty string. Okay. We're going to say let error equal an empty string. And this should probably be error message to not get confused with the state. Okay, and it changed it to const, but I don't want it to be const because I want to be able to change it. Okay, so then we're going to say if title is empty, then we're going to say error message is going to be equal to error message plus equal. So that means it's going to be equal to itself plus, and then I'm going to do title. Okay. And then I'm going to do the same thing with author, genre, and price. Okay. And then once we're done looking at all of those things, then we're to say set error is equal to missing info. And then we are going to add on the error message. I'm going to use the backticks. So that way I can add my variable here. All right. So if I have this, it's saying missing info price. All right, let's say if I'm probably going to have this wrong. Genre, price. All right. And okay, so it's saying that we're missing title, author, genre, and price. Okay, so I think what I want to do is I'm going to see if I can do like a new line like that. No. So it does the space before some. Okay, what I'm trying to figure out is like, do I want commas in here? I kind of feel like I feel like I'm being very extra right now. It's probably fine to just have that because if I add a comma here, right? So if title, so what if, I'm going to just play around with it a little bit. So let's say we have title, but we're missing author, genre, and price. I'm trying to figure out if I want a comma after it or not, because if I added a comma after title, but title is the only one that's missing, right? So maybe let's do a let count equals 0. So if title is missing, then we'll do that, and then we'll do count plus plus. Okay, so here we'll start with count is equal to 0. If title is missing, then we'll add the word title to our error message. All right. If title is the first one, so we want to increment the count, but we don't really need to worry about count ever being more than 1 because it's the first one that we're checking. Okay. Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum. But then the count could be 2 here. So what I'm worried about now is if the count is 2 here, whether or not I want a comma here, right? So like, okay, let's say title's the only one missing. All right. So title is missing, but then we have this comma here. So like that I don't love because like it's only the title. So you shouldn't have just the title there. So like I feel like it should be like that, right? So it feels like we want the comma to be added here. But what if only, okay, I think we're on to something. Okay, so count goes up. So then we're going to say if count is greater than 0, then we're going to add a comma. We're going to add a comma space author. Sure. All right. If, okay, wait, title space comma space author. If comma is greater than 0, otherwise we will do error message is just going to be author. All right, let's try that logic out and see how it's working. Okay. So if we don't put any, if we have something for title, then the count would be the count would be, okay, so if we have something for title and we miss author, and then let's just do genre and price. Okay, so yeah, that should just be author with no comma before it. But if we have no title missing, then that means title is blank, so count is 1. If count is 1, then we're going to use this error message instead. My concern is I need an else. I don't like to overuse else though. So see how we have 2 authors? So yeah, we do need the else. Okay. So otherwise, then we will do that, but regardless, we will add the count. So let's go ahead and add this in. All right. So if we have a title, it's just going to say author. If we don't have a title, it's going to say title, comma, author. So there does not need to be a space before that. So that would be title, comma, author. Okay, I think we have it, and I have 8 minutes until it's time to call it. So I think we can do this, and we might just need to refactor later into something not as messy as what we have. Maybe like a helper function. Okay, so that looks good. So let's go ahead and do the same thing with genre. Okay, so again, if I want to edit multiple things, I highlight Command D, and then I can edit both things. But now we would need count to be greater than, well, it should make it greater than or equal to 0, right? Okay, let's give this a try. Let's work this out. This also, probably not gonna lie, would be great for test-driven development, because you could very easily make a test case for all of these different things and then just run it instead of like manually going through. But I'm feeling lazy. But wouldn't it be the opposite of lazy? Whatever. Okay. So title, we'll put something for author. We'll put something for genre. We'll put nothing for. Okay, so we're missing genre. Good. Okay, so let's be missing something else too. So now author, comma, genre. Let's be missing title. Title, comma, author, comma, genre. Yes. Okay, so then we want to do, we have a title, but we're missing author. I think that's the only one we missed. And that looks good. Okay, so I think we have a good system. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this here. And this should not be genre. This should be price. All right. So let's go ahead, and we're going to be missing price. So now we have author, genre, price. Nailed it. Okay. Let's be missing everything. Title, author, genre, price. All right. So now I ask you, no one is commenting in the chat, so I'm only ask you for like 10 seconds of awkward silence. But should we add an and before the price? Are we trying to get fancy here? Yes or no? I'm leaning towards no, because we only have 6 minutes. But if you really feel strongly and you want an and, you let me know. Okay. Okay. So let's test this. So we want to do only missing price. Would be just price, and then let's just do like every other. That looks good. Every other. All right. Cool. Let's do like these two. I could probably think of all of the cases. Okay, that looks good. I don't love, so it's saying set error. There was an error. Okay, where's there was an error coming from? This is an error. That's console logging though. I've lost track of my brain, so missing info. Oh, it's coming from here. So we can just do this. All right. And then instead of missing info, because that's not really a great thing for users, we'll say something like all yes motive edits in 1 minute. Let me just wrap this up. All fields are required. All right, refresh my page. All fields are required. Title, author, genre, price. All right, you know what? It's ugly, but I'm pretty proud of it. Okay, so yep, we have 4 minutes. Motive Edits wants to see the API or the backend controllers, and I am happy to show you that. If you want more details, this is actually our like 6th installation of working on this library app. So the API is what we worked on first. So you might want to go back and watch those, but no worries. So here is my controller. Here I'm using Nest.js to make this. I'm not gonna lie though, I use Go at work. So I'm kind of thinking about switching over to Go. What are our thoughts in the chat? Please let me know if you like that idea. So I'm thinking about rewriting this in Go in the next one. But yeah, we have our get all books. Then we have a get specific book, which we're not actually using at the moment, but maybe we will in the future. Post book, that's what we were just working on here. We don't need this anymore. Put and delete. So each of those basically calls our app service. So we go to our app service, and then you can see all of that. We're using type ORM. So you'll see that we're injecting our repository for our book, and that is how we are doing our database. Your mom. Okay, so Igor says my mother would tell me that for sure that it's ugly, but I'm proud of it. Yeah, I feel that way. It is ugly, but I am a site reliability engineer, not a front-end developer. So that is what I put my hat on there. All right, so whenever you make a change, you should have automated tests. So that way you can just run your test suite, which I guess that could also be what we work on. Because if you look at our spec tests, they're just the hello world spec test. So I'm gonna close that. But you want to just make sure that everything works as intended. So in our last 3 minutes, I'm going to actually try to add a legit book. Test author 3, test genre 3, and then we'll make this $3. Because I want to make sure that this actually adds a book and works as the way we intended. And it does, so yay us. We want to make sure that we can still edit books. So you can go ahead and do that, and that still works. Edit it back. And we want to make sure we can still delete our books. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that book. And there you have it. We have finished our simple CRUD application. This is a library. I'm going to go ahead and push the code, and then I will put in the chat the link to the repo if you want to use it. You are welcome to, because I don't care. Okay, I am on main, so let's go ahead and make a branch just so we can say we're good developers. So we'll say get checkout-b cs finish MVP. All right, then I'm going to do get add. I'll do get status again. That looks good. I'll do get commit. And I know I commit like a newbie, but I just find a way to do something and then I continue it. Okay, and then in my terminal, I'm going to say finished initial scope for MVP, and then git push. All right, I don't have this branch on GitHub yet, so I'm going to have to go ahead and set upstream origin. And now what I can do is I can create a pull request. All right. Should I write a good description? Yes, I should. Am I going to? No, because I have a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and create a pull request so I can take my changes from this branch and merge them into main. So I'm going to create a pull request. And then I'm going to go ahead and it looks like we changed 5 files today. So should I be a good developer and look at all of my changes? Yes, I should. Am I going to? No, because it is 9. And then I can go ahead and I can merge to main. All right. So this is our book CRUD application. You can see that we just finished the initial thing. Should probably have a README. But here in the chat is going to be the code. If you want to look at it, if you want to play around with it. Thank you so much for anyone and everyone who joined. I do this every other week where I do live coding on a simple CRUD application because I miss full stack development. It's not what I do in my day job anymore. On the other weeks, I have meetups with members from the community. So if you go to LinkedIn and you look at Coding with Callie, this is my LinkedIn page, and we have different events coming up. So for example, in 2 Thursdays, not next Thursday, because next Thursday is Halloween, but you can see that we have this What is Site Reliability Engineering meetup, and we will go over that with one of my coworkers. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining, and I am going to call tonight. Bye.